Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the AI Innovator Summit. The webinar will start momentarily, so let's give people 1 or 2 more minutes to join before we kick off. While we have people joining, I can see the numbers building as we speak. Just a few housekeeping rules before we kick in. First, we will be monitoring the chat, so please submit any questions you have into the Q&A window, and we'll try to address them at the end. And or if we don't get to your question, we certainly will have someone reach out to you afterwards. And then number 2, we have included a link to our AI Hub, where you can find all of the key resources and thought leadership from Kantar on the topic of AI, artificial intelligence. And finally, all sessions will be recorded and available on demand. So if you're watching this on demand, hi, sorry you missed it live, but we're glad you're here anyway. So it looks like the numbers are good, they're stable, and let's go. So let's get started. So my name is Jeff Herman. I'm the Global Client Director at Kantar. And in this session of the AI Innovator Summit, we'll look at integrating AI throughout the marketing lifecycle. Now we have a very interesting guest coming up. His name is Shekhar Deshpande. He's with Meta Platforms. He's the global head of strategy at Meta Platforms. And, you know, we're going to get into a very fascinating discussion around how AI is supercharging the effort. And we're going to really double click into the notion of creative, right? And creative best practices and what AI has done to really unleash our potential. We also are going to be discussing a white paper, which will soon be released. And the good news is, I'm going to tease this white paper, humans are safe, right? In the world of creative, in the world of AI, there's still a very strong role for the human element. So I'm sure you'll want to tune in. So stay tuned for a few minutes. Shekhar will be with us here shortly. So today we're looking at unlocking potential, right? So how integrating AI through the entire marketing lifecycle can unlock our potential. And you think about these, broad areas we can discuss, right? The role of innovation, the role of creative, the role of media, the role of brand. AI has the ability, foundational AI and machine learning and generative AI capabilities can really unleash and unlock so much potential. We're going to speak specifically to the role of creative. It's important though, because AI can really improve creative quality. And we know it's proven this from our Link AI solution, right? It's proven that if you improve creative quality, you get a 30% boost in ROI. And as you'll hear, creative is one of the areas that, if you have maintained the same media investment, improving creative effectiveness can basically 2 to 3x your impact just by improving creative effectiveness. So, Link AI certainly is a tool set that can do that because it's based upon 250,000 tests, around 37 million human interactions. And we are perpetually updating the model. So we're excited today to get to this conversation around creative's impact and then media's impact, right? So how does AI unlock potential in media as well? Because if you look at thousands of inputs and thousands of campaigns through Lift ROI, as we did with Meta, you can start to triangulate in and zero in on what are the best levers to pull to optimize your program. And so without further ado, I think we are going to transition to our conversation. I'll invite Shekhar to join us. Shekhar, thanks for joining us today. You are the head of strategy for global clients at Meta Platforms, and we're thrilled to have your perspective on AI and how it's really changing the world of marketing. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. Lovely to be here.
So just to get started, could you give a brief background about your depth of industry experience and really how you come today with a perspective on AI, and especially in the world of marketing?
I've been at Meta about 5.5 years, coming up to close to 6 years now, and I am the sort of marketing strategy partner for our global clients team, which is about 18 to 20 of our top global clients. And my role is essentially to find opportunities that will help our clients grow their business, find new areas of growth, be more effective or be more efficient, or all of the above. And so I've had the privilege of working with some of the world's top advertising companies and marketing companies. And before that, I spent about 19 years at WPP in J. Walter Thompson, where I was a global strategy director across about 13 years in London and 6 years back in India, where I did work a fair bit on FMCG, CPG clients, as well as hospitality, energy, and across a whole host of continents as well. So really lucky to have worked in the Americas, in Europe, in Asia, and Southeast Asia and China as well.
Well, that's excellent. So, in the world of marketing, back in the fall of 2022, we all heard this big bang, right? I'm sure we all heard it, right? And that's when, AI has been evolving for years. But what was so special about the fall of 22 with the release of ChatGPT? Like, how has your perspective changed since then? If you have some perspective, and its impact on the world of marketing.
That's fascinating. One of the interesting things was that my son, who was at the time 11 years old, got really interested in this whole thing called ChatGPT, and we went on laptops and tried doing fun stuff. But that was the first time where I guess AI became a lot more prominent in our minds. But that's not when AI has actually made a difference and added a little bit of value to our lives. That's been happening for a fair period of time. So whether you look at the world of Alexa, which so many households have, and other sort of virtual assistants, and if you go back to our world to determine, what shows up in your feed, and how machines respond to what sort of content you want to like and you want to see more of. So AI has been around, but I guess it became a lean forward in addition to a lean back and enjoy the benefits of thing as of the fall of 22, isn't it? And then everyone starts talking about it, but it's not a 22 thing. It's been around for a lot longer than that.
Absolutely. And so if you think about in the world of marketing, so often we start with consumer insights. What's your perspective on how AI in recent history, how has the consumer insights industry changed, and what opportunities do we have to leverage AI for consumer insights?
That's so interesting. I mean, if you look at it from an advertiser or platform perspective, let's get to the maybe consumer bit first and then the insights bit second. If you look at how it's changed things for people, it has helped create and curate the feed that is much, much more closer to what I want to see and what I'm interested in. And it has also, on the other hand, it's expanded the world of content that we can access. So a lot of the feed at the moment, for instance, is from sources that I have not chosen. By I, of course, I mean all of us, but those sources that we've not chosen, but the machine is predicting what I am likely to like, and then it serves me that content from somebody that I may not have actively chosen myself. So it's gone beyond my immediate world to the world of people I like and actively click on to content that I would like. And that obviously has implications on the world of consumer insights, which is, again, there are so many facets to it. One of them is learning more and more about what kind of consumers are actually likely to buy a certain kind of product. So that you may not, it's more the outcome of an insight, I guess, but it begins with knowing more about a baseball cap, for instance, or a gift is not just for the hardcore fans of that particular team, but a lot of other audiences might also be interested in it because they want to gift it, or they have a nephew or a niece who's interested there. So again, it helps you learn that and then apply that learning across. And of course, the third aspect of consumer insights itself is that it is able to do it at a scale and a speed that would have required months and months of learning So it means that we can actually learn about what's happening much faster and much more reliably and at much bigger scale. So one of the things that we have done is we've started a conversations tool where we are able to not just access, on a for a certain brand or for a certain vertical or for a category, what were the most likely, most popular conversations or hashtags, etc. And you might argue that that was possible 5 years, 10 years ago as well. But then we can apply machine learning to it and apply filters, and it will help us identify the top 20, the top 25, and the most relevant ones at a speed that was simply not possible before. So I would say that it has a ton of implications on the scale and speed. And I think I'm sure we'll come on to talk about our project that we're working on
Mhm.
together. But again, it helps you do things that were not possible before, uh, because you want to apply certain kinds of, let's say, tags to any kind of work or any kind of learning, and then a machine and AI led capability allows you to do that, which was simply not possible before. I,
Absolutely. I mean, AI being this curation engine, right? So it's constantly curating, and then with hyper personalization, and so it's looking for these signals, right? So it's almost like you have this real-time flow of information and signals going back and forth. And so yeah, that role of the consumer, the benefit we have is extreme personalization, right? Which really then gets to some amazing potential from a marketing standpoint.
from a marketing standpoint, I think there are two significant shifts that are happening. And one of them is that we move from buying space to buying audiences to buying outcomes. So for a marketer, there is a ton of additional value in actually pinpointing outcomes, but leaving the audiences flexible, which is what AI is allowing us to do, rather than pinpointing audiences and maybe losing out on some of the other significant marginal opportunities that may exist somewhere. So if you think about outcome backwards planning, whether the outcome is short-term sales or long-term sales or equity, or creating greater consideration or category entry points. If you think of outcome and work backwards from there, AI and machine learning is actually allowing marketers to plan and think that way. And that I guess is the first one. And you might say that that's a more media-led implication of AI. The second, which might be a more creative-led implication, is that there is certainly an increasingly strong case for creating diversity in creative. And you and I have worked on this, haven't we? So the more diversity we create, the more chances we give machines to try and experiment different types of creative approaches, different types of executions. And it literally does this in seconds and minutes. It's able to learn very, very quickly what sort of creatives, what sort of executions are being more relevant to what sort of audiences and what sort of interest groups. And then it not only is more efficient or more effective for the same amount of investment, but it also unlocks newer areas of opportunity, which going in a planner or a marketer might not have thought of. So it moves us from a methodology or a principle of thinking of one idea and a few executions to a system of ideas which are all consistent with the brand. And system of ideas is something that Jimmy Stone, our VP, that talks very passionately about, and it's his term, not mine. But he talks about how you need to, for a brand, think of different ways in which you will approach different audiences and let the machine uh, do the sort of triangulation of finding the right people and the outcomes. So I think both in media and in creative, it has pretty profound implications on how actually to maximize the dollar investment.
Absolutely. I want to double click on creative and especially this notion of system of ideas, because together we are working on a new area of storytelling, right? So how do we raise the bar on creative effectiveness? And that's work we've done. We've been working on this together for many months, and have a white paper forthcoming, which should be released today, in the next few days. But this system of ideas, so historically, marketing and advertising was about what's the one big idea, right? What's the one big idea that's gonna, shake up our consumer audience? We're now to this system of ideas. So how has AI enabled the testing and the facilitation of this system of ideas? Like, what's special about this?
Well, I would say that I would go to the extent of saying that this may not have been possible without AI, because we are only able to see the difference of having diversity of creative, diversity of executions, and then seeing the results from it. Because for a minimum level of investment and in a very short span of time, AI is able to determine what's working best for what audiences, and it's able to serve a diversity of ideas to a diversity of people. But if we had to wait for 3 months or 6 months for us to find out whether that investment was working or not, but we're simply not going to do it, are we? Because producing it and creating it and investing the time is not a small exercise. So obviously, that is a big enterprise, which is made possible by the speed and scale at which AI is able to deliver the right signals for marketers, and actually going beyond delivering signals, it acts on those signals and then delivers outcomes for marketers.
Right. So speaking of speed and scale, because we've worked together, so market mix modeling, or Kantar calls it lift ROI, and that's testing at scale, thousands of campaigns, right, and billions of impressions determine the unique combination of what's most effective. So our work together, a new era storytelling, we did determine creative effectiveness, not only driving what's most impactful from a short-term sales, but from a long-term brand equity perspective. These findings were fascinating. So how do we deploy this system of ideas? We found that, there are two major themes and then four levers underneath. And it's all a function of this thing we have called our mobile device, right? So the mobile device is so unique in that it truly gives you agency to command your world at your personal remote control. And so with mobile being a platform and the volume of advertising dollars put across digital these days, with mobile being the primary driver, what have we found? There were two main findings, two main factors: intimacy and immediacy, which we found. And how has AI powered those two findings to drive really consumer impact and creative effectiveness?
I mean, so if you look at intimacy and immediacy both as critical factors that are probably the biggest drivers on what succeeds, not just for advertisers, but also for any kind of feed that you see. As you were saying, intimacy essentially is, this is the most personal kind of device that you will see any content on or any ad on. So it speaks directly to you. And immediacy is, we are literally leaning in, we're still looking to maximize every single second of the eyes and the attention that we're giving the mobile phone. So very quickly, as you said, Jeff, our agency is at its max when, if we're getting bored with something, we just move on. Now, in that context, what AI is doing here is, through the research, it is helping us in the context of insight, as you mentioned earlier on. It is helping us understand in a manner that would not have been possible before, what are the different creative levers that are actually winning in that environment of intimacy and immediacy. And so by being able to actually tag 20 different creative levers that CreativeX have done for us, and by being actually able to correlate and analyze which of those levers are actually delivering on both short-term sales outcomes as well as long-term sales outcomes. And of course, I'm saying what you should be saying, but if I have your permission, then we're able to see surprising and fascinating things that we've not seen before. I mean, I'm so excited for the white paper to come out, where who would have thought that after machine-led exercise linked to untouched by hand or human influence, the biggest thing that pops up is human connection, which is
Right.
81%, and eye contact, which is 81% higher correlation on effectiveness. So the some of these findings, and of course visual dynamism, which I think a lot of creative people believed in it at our end, but it's lovely to see that it's being corroborated by these findings, which tells us that we are now able to see and analyze and discover things through machine learning and AI that would simply not have been possible before. And I'm hoping that with the top 4 levers, we're able to see a next wave where marketers are actually acting on these and deploying as many of these as possible in their advertising and see a delta in before and after.
Absolutely. That's what was most fascinating about this is in the world of AI, the human connection, the one-on-one conversation, the direct conversation that, say, a person representing a brand, and then how the ads make the brand or the product the hero of the story, right? So when you combine human connection and brand interaction, there's a mimicking that happens in the brain, right? So it's fascinating that AI has told us that we're still safe. So humans have a role to play in the world going forward, right? Because you definitely have to see, you can definitely see that's a critical nature. Talk a little bit about the distinctive atmosphere, as that was one of the findings, because those cues, those brand cues. I mean, what kind of setup can AI tell us about that?
That's so interesting that you would have thought that that there are semiotic and subconscious cues which help you recognize the message and identify the brand behind that message and identify the kind of emotion that is being evoked through that message. You would have thought that that's happening fairly quickly, but the sort of distinctive atmosphere bit tells us about having distinctive sounds, distinctive color palettes, etc., that are able to work incredibly fast and that are able to deliver on, as we said, short-term as well as long-term outcomes. And I think that has strong implications on how you want to create, as a creative team, a distinctive set of emotions that are powerful, that are already now, the research tells us, that are already working very quickly, and that you can leverage these in a different way versus having to tell a fully linear story of a beginning, middle, and end. But you can use these semiotic cues to tremendous effect and deliver a message quicker, but more importantly, perhaps in a very different way than the classic sort of storytelling model. And that's why, as you know, we're calling it the new era of storytelling.
Right. So, and I encourage everyone watching today, please go find and download the white paper. It's been a fascinating set of stories, but yeah, without speed and scale, I think that's the key theme we're hearing today, right? So AI really supercharges our effort, it super scales our efforts with identifying these creative elements and then literally correlating the impact of creative to media effectiveness, because we all know that media investment, right? So budgets, getting your CFO to release more media dollars is always such a challenge, but creative is still the one area where you can really, with the same level of media investment, dramatically increase the effectiveness. And that's, what advice would you offer to our audience today as far as working with their CFO to really just get that investment?
I think the interesting difference between planning for audiences versus planning for outcomes and investing months and months of time in one particular execution or an idea versus investing time in a diversity of executions, both for media and creative. The argument to the CFO really is that because at an upfront level, if we are able to be more flexible and more diverse, in the end, on the other side of the marketing cycle or the investment cycle, not only is it more efficient, where you get a higher return on investment for your dollars, it is also more effective because you will have found audiences and markets and opportunities that you could not have gone in initially predicting. So it is actually more effective on the top line, in addition to just being more efficient on the bottom line. So there's a pretty strong case to be made for thinking about the same investment and actually deploying it differently. And over time, I'm sure with more information coming in, we'll be able to see the delta in the returns very clearly as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, Shekhar, we are running out of time here for our session, but definitely appreciate your time and your insight into how AI can really just supercharge our efforts, create more speed and scale. We do have some questions. I'm looking at the Q&A, looking at the chat. It's been a pretty robust chat. A quick question from the audience: what should we look out for? So, are there any risks? Because we've had such a positive conversation, we see so much positive momentum. What risks are there for marketers to consider?
Wow, that's a great question. I guess the one risk that a marketer will, of course, have to balance out is knowing what the brand stands for and trying as much creative diversity as possible while staying very close to the kind of associations and the emotive equity that the brand has. And within that brand, diversifying to perhaps different interest levels and different kinds of buying cycle stages and so on and so forth, but to keep the brand as cohesive and coherent as possible is, I think it's more a responsibility. I don't know if it's a risk, but definitely you want all of those 6 or 7 different audiences to think of the brand in the same way and not in 6 or 7 different ways.
What about the role of creators? So this came in the chat as well. So
Right.
When you rely on creators to take your messaging forward, some creatives are amplified paid, right? And other creators are very organic in the way they're supporting. So how do you deal with, say, a creator that's taking your brand message forward beyond the control of the brand, if you will?
Right. Yeah, absolutely fascinating question. And I think we have had some luck with creators and talking with creators and inviting creators to share their experiences with clients. And we had Peter Quinn just last week talking to one of our major global clients, and he was saying that if you just follow a creator and observe the work that they're doing, and then you decide this is the creator for me, you've done more than half the work already, because you would be thinking about the creator from that brand's perspective, and you will get a really good sense of, this creator feels right for the brand, this creator does not feel right for the brand.
Right. That dialogue, that two-way interaction as far as this one-way broadcasting. So that's fascinating. And unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. That's all we have time for today. Shekhar, thank you so much for joining us today on this, sharing your experience and expertise, how AI is just opening up all these opportunities with Meta, and then, obviously the wider industry. And audience, I want to thank you as well for taking the time you spent with us today. So please continue on. This is a full day of programming. We're going to be exploring innovation in AI, and our next session is Kantar's chief AI scientist. It's Ashok Kalidis, and he will take us through how we're accelerating insights by maximizing the value of consumer data. And he will be joined by Jane Osler, our EVP of Global Thought Leadership, and they're discussing the hottest topics in AI and what she's hearing on the ground from clients and from influencers. So if you've registered, you'll have the invite next on this next session in your calendar. And if you haven't, just use the link in the console and on your screen and join the next webinar. So Once again, thanks so much for joining us today, and thank you for tuning in.